Welcome to the Geeky Grandma with an Encouraging Nudge podcast. Hi, my name is Jill McCarthy from Central New York State, and this is our 55th podcast. And today our guest is Sheyenne Kreamer, and she's an amazing lady that I met at one of the summits that we were both on the same summit. Kind of started reading each other's responses and listening to each other's talks, and we found we really clicked, and it's been fun ever since. So listen to her bio and we'll get started. Sheyenne Kreamer is known as the Live Your Song coach. Ever since high school, she has encouraged people to engage their heart and soul in the pursuit of a paycheck instead of sacrificing their heart and soul. She has taken her message to several colleges and universities in the class she has created called Find Your Song and Sing It, finding and creating work you love, while also teaching it in churches and as a speaker for Parliament of the World Religions. She and her husband, Don, are now full-time RV'ers, traveling the country to spread the message that you are a miracle we're waiting for. You are the miracle we are waiting for, while helping to launch new communities that value good health, prosperity, and peace. Well, good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Jill. I am awesome, and thank you so much for having me today.
Very good. And she's become a full-time RVer, so that kind of really touches my heart. And she's teaching people. She's working with a little younger people mostly than I am, but we it's funny because each guest I come on, we've got a little bit in common, but each one has a little different shoot of it. It's like the puzzle pieces you talk about. So
That's right.
okay. Wow. Where do we begin? Was it maybe in high school when you were kind of making up your mind on which career path and which courses to take?
That is a great place to start because, it may be unusual for a lot of people to kind of start to tune in to what their calling really is about in high school. But I think I had some situations early on that kind of started to nudge me in this direction because very early on, I actually lost friends to suicide. And that is a very, very sad thing to experience any time in life. But as a high school student, it's definitely a traumatic thing. And, after that, I started really looking at my classmates and thinking, okay, so this one's going off to study accounting when they really want to be in the ministry. And this one, is just still confused about what they want to do, but their parents are pushing them real hard to go to college right away. And I'm like, I was valedictorian in my class and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I got up and gave a valedictory speech about following your heart. And for me it was about going and taking an apprenticeship job with a manufacturing company so that I could use my hands to learn and also get to kind of view all these different career paths as I was going through the apprenticeship. So that was kind of the beginning for me of just going, all right, so college is a valuable thing, and luckily that company ended up paying for me to go to college, but I don't think it's necessarily the best thing to do immediately out of high school. That's just my personal opinion.
Right. And I'm sure because around here, many the valedictorians get scholarships that probably have to be used right up or lose them. I don't know
Yep.
about all of them. And so that was you had a lot to risk in so doing. But at that point, you had gained enough perspective on life, that you knew it didn't last forever, and that you really have to make good choices, and don't get stuck in traps just because your parents are pushing in one direction. Sure, parents are great, and they love you and they care about you, and maybe they have some more wisdom, but you're still the one that it's your life that's on the line, and you made a brave call.
It's true, and I value the input of parents. Obviously, they have wisdom to give to their kids, but here's the funny part, and I always laugh when I think back about this because my mom, I love her dearly. She's still with us. But at the time, she was really trying to encourage me to go towards electrical engineering because that's where the money was going to be. And I kept going, oh God, that just doesn't sound exciting to me. Well, the funny part was that as part of that apprenticeship program, I ended up having to take a course in basic electronics. And believe it or not, that's the only class I've ever taken that I couldn't do better than a C. That would have been a disaster.
Sure, I hear you. I hear you.
Oh,
So you were good at math. You were good at science. You're doing your um, electronics there. What happened after that?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was that I ended up getting my degree in math and computer science. And I really did that more because I wanted to strengthen my problem solving skills. And I wasn't even sure even at that point. I mean, a lot of people who worked in the company I was working for were going and getting business administration degrees. But it was kind of a unique situation that I was working full time and going to school because I was seeing in the company I was working for that they were already rejecting a lot of the philosophies that were being taught in the business classes. And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to get a degree, I need to find something I'm not going to argue with. So math and computers ended up being it. It was all logic, right?
Yep.
So, but, and it worked out well because I ended up getting into project management as a result of those courses. And, and it was interesting, but, 11 years into it, I got laid off.
Ooh.
And that's where everything started to shift. I actually got transferred to another facility that I lived in Vermont growing up. I got transferred to North Carolina to be in another facility that was in a plant startup mode. Thought that I would be there for a good long time, but the plant startup, 6 months into it, suddenly became a plant closing. So it's like, okay, God, what did you bring me here for, really? And that was the challenge to figure out. But that is the stepping stone that launched me in the direction of becoming an entrepreneur.
Okay. So you got the answer to that question.
I did, and believe it or not, it came to me one night when I was peeling potatoes. I'm standing there just peeling these potatoes, and I was only about a month until the doors were actually going to close on that plant that I had been hired into. And I was confused. I was going crazy, and all of a sudden I'm peeling away, and all of a sudden I just get this idea that just boom into my head. And the idea was be a consultant. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Because that, I knew nothing about sales and marketing. I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. The only thing I'd ever sold in my life was Girl Scout cookies. So that was kind of wild. But the good news was that as I started thinking about what I would do if I was actually going to pursue being a consultant, I loved being a leader and facilitator of problem-solving teams. So I said, well, if I'm going to go out here and try to do something on my own, it better be something I can get excited about. And that's what I got excited about. And just by going through my network of contacts of other people I had worked at the plant with who already had new jobs, one of the gals was like, "Oh my God, Cheyenne, our HR director needs you like yesterday." And I'm like, "Okay." And so within 3 weeks of getting that crazy idea that I had no idea how to implement, I had my first consulting gig.
Wow. Watch out, KP duty can get you, can it?
That's it. That's it. But that's where I really started to learn, that each of us has these natural skills and talents that really can make a difference. And that's what happened in that first consulting gig, because it was the first time in my life that I was being brought in as an outside expert to help out to solve a problem. And that was really unique for me. In fact, I remember the manager who brought me in, I was always asking his permission to do this or do that. And he's like, "I'm not your boss. I just want you to get the job done. Do it the best way that you know how." And I'm like, "Oh my God,
Whoa.
he's actually listening to me." And
trust in your judgment.
exactly. And that was such a different situation than being a corporate employee. And I ended up making such a huge difference there. I mean, I had to go and create teams in all of these departments, because what had happened was the human resource department had come up with this great idea that they were going to pay for skills. So it was like, if you worked in this department and you wanted to get trained in another department so that they could kind of use you back and forth between the two departments, they'd actually increase your pay. But they hadn't given anybody the training programs to learn how to increase those skills. And that's where I came in. So I got a team from each department and got them creating their own training programs. And it was amazing, because they did a great job. And there was one department that was so funny, because the manager, when I went in here and said, "Look, I want to open up your department for volunteers. I'm looking for 6 or 7 people to be on this team. They're going to help me create a training program for your department." And the people who volunteered, he came to me and he was like, "Cheyenne, you're never going to get anywhere with this group." And I said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Because these are my troublemakers." I said, "Well, let me try, okay?" And it was so funny, because they ended up creating a program that was awesome. And the manager walked in one day, and it was so funny, because he walked in just as one of his troublemakers was saying, "Well, we really can't include that because it really wouldn't benefit the company." And the guy stops in his tracks and he's like, "Cheyenne, how did you clone my people? These are not the people I gave you." So, that's when I really learned that I could make a big impact by being an outside consultant rather than being an employee inside somewhere.
Right. That atypical group they gave to you really was the creatives that needed to be able to explore in their own way, and you
Yes.
gave it to them.
Yes, and that's exactly it. And I know you've got the school teacher background, and that is a huge issue I have found, because a lot of our young people who are not doing it as well in school as they could, they're bored because they have so much creativity that they want to use, and yet so much of the system is just trying to make them memorize and, repeat so many different things, and they're not getting to use their creativity. And I think that's such a sad state of affairs today.
Well, and just to kind of recant that from the teacher side, sometimes the teachers are bored, but they're being dictated, this is what has to be, and this is how you have to do it. And many times, any experienced teacher would know better paths but sometimes their hands are tied. So
Oh
I,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and I know that's true. I absolutely know that's true. And yet, I think I had previously told you a story about me being in a high school as a volunteer for a semester, and and the teacher, God bless him. I mean, he had a book about entrepreneurship that he was supposed to be teaching from, but the kids were bored silly. And so when I volunteered to come in one day a week and help them to be part of a business plan writing competition, now they had the opportunity to create. And,
ah,
so we ended up with 6 teams in that classroom, and each team was creating their own business plan, and they had to do a PowerPoint presentation. They had to actually stand in front of the class and give their presentation. They had to do a cash flow statement where they had to crunch numbers and figure out what would it really cost to run a business like this. And they, because they were actively involved and doing a hands-on exercise and creating this vision that they had, I got a call from the principal a year later wanting to know what I had done with that class. I said, well, I'll tell you if you'll tell me why you're asking. And she said, well, it's because that class got higher end of grade test scores than the ones before or after. And I said, well, isn't that amazing when you make the learning relevant to the students, what can happen? Oh my goodness. But, when I asked her, I said, well, are you ready to put in an after school program about entrepreneurship? Oh no, we don't have funding for that.
so sad.
Yep. And that's why my husband and I are out here. We're working on building, alternative or complementary systems and programs to help fill some of these gaps that we've seen as we've been out here on the road.
Right. And I think I told you that, my husband's in the construction business, and he'd even get people from our trade school version of our high school, and they'd come to him to work like an apprenticeship type of thing. And they couldn't even read a ruler and a tape measure. And it was like, so what is exactly that they're teaching? And it's sad because you've seen what can work when it's applied in the right way, and the
You know
difference
it.
it makes in those kids' lives.
Yes, yes. And that's another important piece too when you mention construction trades. I was fortunate, I was in manufacturing, which is a trade, and I actually became a tool maker as part of that program. So, I definitely was a tradesperson. And I actually was interviewed by somebody. In fact, I need to go find that guy. I think he's here in Ohio somewhere. But I was interviewed by a guy who included me in his book, who's all about promoting the trades. And, that's a sad piece for our young people as well, is my husband and I have done career fairs for high school students for 15 years at least. And most of the time when we go to those career fairs, the only people who are there is the military and colleges. So the kids aren't getting the opportunity to explore the trades the way they should. They're not learning about all the vocational possibilities, how to use their hands, if they happen to be kinesthetic learners.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, it's a sad thing. And so, I'm a big advocate for the trades and trying to help more of our young people learn that that is a really good and viable career path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It brings to mind that guy on TV about the dirtiest jobs, and how he goes around trying to, show some jobs that certainly aren't very glorious looking, but, he says he's up to his neck in goo. But years ago, kids did some of those things and they didn't think anything of them. And now they won't even take a McDonald's job because, heaven forbid, I don't make the money my parents do after they've worked 25 or 50 years.
I know.
It's it's an eye opener, but I'm sure when they saw it with their own little businesses they were making with you, that they could see there's a lot more going into it than you realize.
It's true. It's true. Last summer we were very blessed to have an opportunity to work with a church in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the pastor of the church really believed that our young people should be learning about entrepreneurship as a career path too. And so we went to a local high school and we did presentations about a summer camp experience that we decided to create that we just called the Young Entrepreneur Experience. And we ended up with about a dozen kids. Some of them were still in high school, but actually some of them had aged out of the foster care system. And a lot of those young people have a really hard time getting into, a stable situation because they lived in so much instability that it's just tough. So we had this group, and many of them were already working on doing their own business ideas. We had a gal that was making her own jewelry, and we had one that was making cake pops, and we had a young man who he was an independent personal trainer, and he was also an artist. And he had some of his paintings on display. And what they ended up doing at the end, because we did a lot to teach them more about sales and marketing and getting them hands-on with business owners. And at the end, they did their own business expo and they sold their own products. And it was really quite amazing. I mean, the young man who was the artist, he was actually commissioned to do a painting for somebody.
Wow.
So it was an amazing day, and just watching the kids be so excited that not only did they create this stuff, but they actually all took home money at the end of the day, and that was awesome.
I bet that really helped to get a sense of pride in their work, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And just seeing that other people felt that there was value, in it, that they were willing to buy from them. And,
Right.
that
Yeah.
was so good, so good. And it was also beautiful because, the church that was hosting us, we did the whole program and the whole event right there on the church property. And all the church members came out and supported the kids in that. So, that's why my husband and I are on the road, because we want to go and find places like that that can see the needs, some of the gaps that we have in our society, and they're willing to help support us so that we can fill those gaps. That's
It's a
exciting.
win-win. Yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Oh, what's in the future for you, or the plans for it?
Well, we have a company that's called We Care Partnerships Network, and We Care Partnerships Network is designed to bring together teams of small business owners to be able to be the solutions providers in their communities. So as an example, when we were in Raleigh last year, we had a whole team of small business owners who came out and taught and mentored those young people. So, those are the kinds of stuff that we love to do. Now, right now, sitting here on this farm in Ohio, we're actually helping to put together, we're really looking for some core people who might actually want to live on this property and then be part of helping to put together health and wellness retreats. So there will be retreats and conferences and things of that nature going on here that we could get real excited about, because that's another big gap we've got in our society. People are getting sicker instead of healthier.
Right. Wow. That's what an opportunity. Uh, oh, we're getting close to the end of our time. I wonder if our audience is a lot of people yours and my ages, and I root for those grandmothers to get back in there and to help our younger children, students, teens, so that they can know that their value and have things to give to the world. What would you tell them?
Mm. Well, I'll tell you, you mentioned in my bio, one of the presentations my husband and I love to do is "You are the miracle we're waiting for." I think that too often, and especially, folks who have come to the wisdom age, as I like to call it. You know, they've become seniors and grandparents and retirees and all of that. Uh, it's so important that they share their wisdom with the world at this point in time, because there's too many people who are sitting on the bleachers waiting for somebody else to fix the problems we've got on the planet. And I'm just like, no, 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 no. You know, you are the miracle we're waiting for. You have special gifts, talents, wisdom, knowledge, and you should be sharing it with others. And it doesn't have to be that difficult. That's the other thing. You know, my husband and I have made it a point to try to show people all the ways that you can be engaged in helping without a lot of money to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, how many people are doing seminars now in Facebook groups? You know, it doesn't cost you anything to go live in Facebook
Look,
and
right.
put on a seminar, right? So, you know, doing seminars, writing your book. I think everybody has a book inside them that should be written.
I've heard that often. Yes.
You know, and you know, or providing just a service to other people in some way, shape, or form, or just find some product that you get excited about that you like to adopt and be able to share with others. That's one of the things I love. My husband and I are involved with a number of health and wellness companies because there's so many products that can improve your health that the medical community has never heard of and doesn't have the time to learn about them. So that's where we can step in and help people understand how to take more control of their health. So that's my message is you're the miracle. Get off the bleachers, get on the playing field.
Amen to that. That sounds great. Well, thank you, my friend, for being here, and thank you for your uplifting messages. And to go for the trades and get those kinesthetic cans dirty as you go along. Very
Absolutely.
good. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See you in the funny papers. Bye bye for now.